Hi, everyone. I'm Thérèse, and this is New York Girl Again, The After, the podcast for caregivers who survived the hardest chapter of their lives and are now gathering both the courage and the strength to write the next one. I'm so grateful you're here today. We've been journeying together through National Family Caregivers Month and our series on the Unsung Heart, honoring not only the caregivers still immersed in their role, still giving, still carrying, still enduring, but also those whose journey has ended and who are now navigating the sacred and complicated landscape of the after. Last week, we explored legacy of love, how the people we care for continue to guide us, shape us, and live within us in ways that no longer require our hands, only our hearts. And this week, we turn toward a theme that is both tender and transformative: gratitude and grace in the after. I'm recording this episode on the 12th anniversary of my mom's passing. Having just returned from an 8-hour round trip, a journey of love, to visit her, decorate her grave, and honor the woman who shaped my entire life. And like so many of you, I know exactly what it feels like to move through a holiday season with an empty chair at the table, a heart full of love and longing, and a soul still learning how to hold joy and grief in the very same breath. So today's episode is for you, the ones who are still healing, still learning, still trying to make sense of a world that looks different without the person you care for. And it is for the ones we love, the ones whose presence we still feel in the quiet, in our choices, in the softest parts of who we've become. Let's begin. Caregivers know that gratitude can feel complicated. You hear the word gratitude everywhere, especially during the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, as if it's a line item on a checklist, a task to complete, a box to tick before moving on to the next thing. But I have to say, from living the experience myself, that caregivers, especially those in the after, live a far more honest version of gratitude. Maybe honest isn't even the best word. Maybe it's a more pure, more empathetic version. Because when you've walked someone you love all the way to the end of their life, gratitude isn't a holiday slogan. It can be layered and complicated. On one hand, you're grateful you had the people you cared for. Grateful you were able to love them the way you did. Grateful you were present for every breath, every whisper, every goodbye. And on the other hand, when the caregiving journey is ended, you wake up in a world where their chair is empty. Their voice is silent. Their absence is the heaviest thing in the room. That's why gratitude in the after feels so very different. It's the gratitude of someone who has lost something irreplaceable and still chooses to honor what remains. It's the gratitude of a heart that has broken open but hasn't given up. It's the gratitude of someone who knows life can disappear in a moment and still chooses to show up anyway. And that kind of gratitude also requires something equally profound: grace. So, what is grace? Grace is letting yourself be human in a world that keeps asking you to be strong. Grace is allowing yourself to feel joy without apologizing to your grief. Grace is acknowledging that some days you rise, and some days you simply breathe. And both are victories. Grace is whispering to yourself, I'm doing the best I can, and believing it. Even when the world feels lonely, grace is loving the person you've become. Even though you never asked for the experiences that shaped you. Grace is what fills the space between who you were before caregiving and who you're becoming afterward. Grace is the permission to rebuild gently, slowly, beautifully, without rushing, without guilt, without shame. And in the after, grace is not just helpful, it's required. It is a doorway you walk through to rediscover yourself, to breathe again, to live again, to carry gratitude and grief in the same open hands. Then once you begin to understand grace in your heart, the next place it needs to land is your body. Because caregiving leaves fingerprints on the body, the invisible kind only you can see. It changes the way you sleep, the way you breathe, the way you brace for stress, the way your heartbeat reacts to things that shouldn't be frightening at all. Your body hasn't forgotten the years of tension, the years of vigilance, the constant emotional lifting you carried without pause. And yet, the moment caregiving ends, the world expects your body to bounce back to a version of you that hasn't existed in years. But what non-caregivers don't understand is that it's impossible to bounce back on demand. Your body deserves grace, softness, patience, forgiveness. Grace for the weight gained while you were surviving. Grace for the exhaustion that still clings to your bones. Grace for the aches that came from lifting more, physically and emotionally, than one human should ever have to. Your body didn't fail you. It protected you. It protected them. It carried the two of you through a chapter that demanded more strength than most people will ever comprehend. Grace is acknowledging the miracle that you are still standing. Grace is saying, I don't owe anyone my old self. I'm allowed to rebuild slowly. I'm allowed to honor the body that honored my loved one. The heart is the slowest part of us to recover after caregiving. Because your heart wasn't just caring for someone. It was tethered to them. It was synchronized to their breath, their needs, their comfort, their safety. So when people say things like, you should be grateful for the time you had, or you should be moving forward by now, they don't understand something essential. Your heart needs grace. Grace for the tears that still surprise you. Grace for the moments joy feels disloyal. Grace for the days you feel strong, and the days you feel so weak you can't even get out of bed. Grace for still loving someone you can no longer touch. Grace for still talking to them in your car. Grace for still buying a food item they loved without realizing it until you're home, holding it. Grace for the love that continues, even when their life has ended. Grace is simply this: letting your heart take all the time it needs to live in a world they no longer physically inhabit, while still carrying them in the one place they will always belong. One of the most misunderstood parts of the after is that so much of it feels unfamiliar. You're not returning to a before. That life doesn't exist anymore. You're building something new from pieces you never expected to hold. And that too requires grace. Grace for not knowing who you are yet. Grace for not knowing what you want. Grace for trying things and realizing, no, this isn't me anymore. Because caregiving forces you to grow in ways you never signed up for, in ways you never could have imagined, in ways that permanently expand your capacity to love, to see, to understand. And now you're standing in a chapter that feels foreign, but you're bravely learning to shape it anyway. So give yourself grace for reinventing slowly, feeling lost sometimes, being overwhelmed by decisions, starting over in your 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s, relearning joy, rebuilding your identity piece by piece. Grace for the life you're crafting, even if it's messy, unsure, or unfolding one breath at a time at a snail's pace. Because here's what I'm learning every day in the after. You are allowed to build a life that honors where you've been while still reaching toward where you're destined to go. There will come a moment, not all at once, but slowly, when gratitude stops being painful, when you could think of them without feeling like you're breaking, when a memory makes you smile before it makes you cry, when gratitude becomes a warm place to rest instead of a reminder of what you've lost. This is the moment when grace has finally softened the sharp edges of grief. This is the moment when gratitude becomes a bridge back to yourself. Because gratitude in the after isn't about pretending you're fine. It's about recognizing they shaped you. They loved you. They trusted you with their life. They made you who you are. And now you get to live in a way that reflects the best of what they gave you. That is gratitude, the kind only caregivers can understand. I know this episode has asked you to hold your heart open in ways most people never have to. So take a breath with me. Place a hand over your chest. Feel that steady beat and honor it. This is the heart that cared. This is the body that carried you. This is the soul that stayed. This is the spirit that continues. And this is you, learning how to live again with gratitude and grace woven into every step. The after isn't about getting over anything. It's about integrating everything. It's about honoring what shaped you while gently becoming who you're meant to be now. So if no one has told you today, you are doing beautifully. You are allowed to heal slowly. You are allowed to rebuild gently. You are allowed to feel everything. And you are allowed to become new. And grace is what carries you there. If this episode has touched your heart, please share it with someone navigating their own after. Sometimes knowing they're not alone is the beginning of healing. And stay connected with us. Follow at New York Girl Again on social media and visit newyorkgirlagain.com for support, resources, stories, and the kind of togetherness that honors your healing every single day. I'm Thérèse, and this is New York Girl Again, the After.